This is a Chrysler 300C, and as you can 300C, it's a little bit broken. My dad and I bought it from a country Victorian written off vehicle auction about 9 months ago with the ambition of turning it into a track car. Why anybody would want to do that, I'll explain later, but for now you just need to know that we knew the roof was screwed before we bought it. But what we didn't know was that the previous owner was an arsehole. As it turns out, they'd ruined the engine and decided that rather than paying to fix it, they'd cut a tree down on top of the car, claim their insurance money, and live happily ever after. The bastard. Cursing our luck, we got to work, first kicking out the windscreen and vacuuming out all the glass, then ripping out the interior. Everything from the carpet, seats and door cars to the sunroof got the flick, before finally we pulled the ruined V8. We were quick to tear it down and send the heads, block and crank to Adelaide for some fettling from one of the state's best engine builders. With the car now looking far less luxurious than it once was, we unceremoniously decapitated it and sent it into town to receive its roll cage. Built pretty much to V8 supercar specifications, this thing should protect me if, when, I put the car on its lid. If it's good enough for Craig Lowndes or Rick Kelly, it's probably going to be good enough for me. With safety sorted, we fixed the A-pillar that also cobbled from the tree, before filling in our giant sunroof with a panel source from a wrecker. Next we gutted all the excess steel from the doors and boot, along with replacing the door glass with perspex. All this was done in the interest of saving weight, because America's cars, much like its people, aren't known for being the lightest of creatures. The next mission was fitting the second-hand racing seat. Dad designed and built the seat's mounting platform from the ground up, and bolted down our overly complicated seat belt. Then we installed these fully adjustable Pettis coilovers, which should help turn this thing from Main Street Cruiser to sideways bruiser. Next we found out our steering rack was bent, and with second-hand 300C racks running into thousands of dollars, we went another way. Basically, Dad did a heap of custom fab work to mount an FG Ford Falcons rack, which was far cheaper, will be easy to replace if I crash it, and gives us more steering lock. This also required modification of the steering column, which he completed using Daewoo parts. Exciting things came next in the form of our reinvigorated engine parts from Adelaide and many boxes out of the US. It would have been silly to spend all this money to build it to factory spec, so we didn't. The block has been bored and will now run oversized pistons. The heads will flow far better than ever. We have long tube headers, a flash tuner, comp cams, a cold air intake, a rebuild kit, a radiator, and plenty of other stuff that I also forgot to photograph. Despite my objections, Dad and I fully assembled the engine ourselves from top to bottom in an old shed over the course of a weekend. This is something most backyarders run and hide at the thought of, but the old man loves a challenge, and with me fishing spanners and helping where possible, it ended up being a pretty successful venture. Amongst the many parts to come out of the States was my favourite, our Dodge Challenger 6-speed manual gearbox. It was a complete nightmare to track down, but we knew from day dot that this thing had to be a manual, because slush box 4-speed automatics, while fine for driving around looking like 50 Cent, are not very fun when you want to do things like this, or this. Fitting our new gearbox involved our friend the angle grinder, his mate Jack, and a few spanners. We did have massive problems caused by the Challenger starter motor however, which meant the steering column had to be completely redesigned, again, to fit around it. The Challenger's pedal box bolted in and with some heat was made to fit, and finally the clutch fluid reservoir was put in place and the shifter was bolted on. As far as we know, it's about the 10th time a 300C has been made manual in the history of the world, and with the hoops we had to jump through, we're pretty confident it's the first time it's been done down under. With things starting to look very race car-y on the inside, we went one step further, fitting this hydraulic handbrake. This essentially allows the driver to lock the rear wheels very quickly, predictably, and easily, which makes for excellent handbraking and comes in very handy while drifting. Fiddly tools aside, this wasn't too bad a job for me. With that done, we spent a fair bit of time tidying the interior up, then fitting a new windscreen before finishing off under the bonnet and finally attempting to fire the thing up. It refused point blank to do that. We fitted with our new flash tuner and managed to bring it to life with it lazily running on 4 of its 8 cylinders. Convinced the problem was software related, I dragged the car to a dyno tuner in the city who tried everything inside the car's computer, then fitted a new engine wiring harness, but ultimately gave it back to us in the same state he got it. The problem, as it turns out, was inside the engine. The car's MDS system shuts down 4 cylinders to save fuel, and contrary to our research, when you upgrade the cam you need to get new lifters or the car will only be able to run on 4 cylinders, which obviously isn't ideal for a V8 race car. So, with my brother's help, we had to tear the engine back down, install the parts we should have got in the first place, and put it all back together again. After that, and a quick hit from the jerry can, it finally came to life. The car now up and running, albeit a little bit rough due to the tune being completely wrong. It was just a matter of running around and fixing up a few issues that had reared their head. Namely an exhaust leak in the engine bay, which just involved the fiddly torture of taking off the headers and putting them back on. A slight notchiness in Dad's custom steering system, which was a case of him pulling those parts to pieces for about the 8th time, cutting, welding and forcing them back together again, and the roughness of the body. White and gold, while a great name for a knockoff home brand product, just isn't the most intimidating or cool colour scheme for a race car. With our budget already well and truly nuked, we painted it very cheaply using matte black paint that cost us about $10 a litre. It was just a matter of sanding, masking, washing with Prepsol and spraying, then repeating the whole process because we weren't quite happy with the finish. With the second hit laid down, I was off to the dyno shop for a proper tune-up. The car made an impressive 293 rear-wheel kilowatts, which is somewhere around 540 horsepower as measured by a manufacturer. That's more than a Nissan GTR and just about 100 less than a V8 supercar. After that, it got a straight through exhaust system, some Nankang semi-slick tyres, a few stickers, a fire extinguisher, a good wash, and then finally, it was ready. 9 months of setbacks, roadblocks and issues. What was meant to be a simple and quick roof fix evolved into a complete and ground-up transformation. Countless hours of research, engineering, troubleshooting and development, stupid amounts of video footage, hundreds of photos, 2,000 word narration script and way too much time spent editing. Missed deadlines, false finishes and international relations. This car has fought us at every turn, but we endured it all just so we could turn a car that really should have been crushed into something that's just begging to be thrashed. We've come to Mallala Motorsport Park for its first shakedown session. You've been waiting 6 minutes for this, so I'm just going to shut up and let you listen to 5.7 litres screaming at 6,500 RPM for a little while. Sorry to interrupt, but there's things to talk about here. The car survived the 4 15-minute sessions with no issues, apart from an already resolved throttle delay problem, which is why I keep butchering gear changes, the lack of a catch can causing it to burn a little bit of oil, and the brakes faded just 2 laps in. Coming from the Skyline and my Toyota 86, both properly built sports cars, I expected something the weight and size of the Chrysler to be a total pick to drive. To my absolute shock though, it handled brilliantly. Its low height, coilovers, cage, weight reduction, semi-slicks and falcon rack doing their jobs perfectly. The car felt controllable, predictable, rigid, and most surprisingly of all, agile. Our homemade engine didn't miss a beat and pulled remarkably hard, while our imported Challenger gearbox was a pleasure to use. All in all, it felt like a proper race car, and 2 words describe what it's like to drive this thing: fast and fun. Actually, make that 3. Fast, fun, and loud. There's going to be people watching this that say they could make that power out of a 2J, Barra, LS, RB26 or whatever. That was never the point of this car. If we wanted the easiest, cheapest and fastest track car possible, we probably would have just bought a Mitsubishi Evo or a Subaru WRX, or thrown money at the Skyline we already had. The point of this project was to do something a little bit different. To finally answer the question, why 300C? Well, why the hell not? I've always wanted a purpose-built car for hill climbs and track days. Dad's a mad keen Chrysler man from way back. We both like doing things out of the ordinary, and on account of living 400k's apart, we wanted something we could fund, work on, and enjoy together. This car combines our differing interests perfectly, and with the plans we have for the future, including forced induction, aerodynamic upgrades, suspension improvements, and brake enhancements, this thing might just surprise a few people yet. The fact that it's the size of an inner-city apartment is half the fun, because the whole point of modifying a car is overcoming its factory weaknesses and adapting it into something you can enjoy and be proud of in your own way. If your car ticks those boxes for you, then nobody else's opinion, even the very loud ones on the internet, is relevant. I'd like to sincerely thank you for sitting through such a long video, and I hope you'll join us for the rest of this car's journey.